I think in any successful marriage or in any successful relationship, you have to have respect for each other.
Like if we have two different startups, two different jobs, I mean, we'll never be able to do that, right? And so life is all about experiencing, things, taking care of your family, but at the same time, you are also, starting your own company, you have certain ambitions. So I think there's a way to balance both of those. Mm-hmm. And that played us a big factor for us to, doing this together again.
I actually have a really selfish reason for inviting Nabin Banskota and Nami Baral. If you look at their LinkedIn or if you read about them, they are super smart, they are accomplished on their own. But what they have achieved together is incredible, right? And in the Nepali context, we hardly see, husband and wife, partners working together and managing that korko and, professional lives, right? So for me, I think it was really important to have them on our podcast. One, because, they are very inspiring. Nabin has been a very kind and amazing mentor for our incubator. And Nami is somebody that I think is going to inspire a lot of current and future founders, especially because she is, we hardly have a lot of Nepali female founders. So wanted to have them there and just discuss, I think, not just in terms of nearly what they've achieved, but what are the real challenges. I think, entrepreneurship is hard, and we wanted to get the real sort of honest conversation from this couple in terms of managing their house, their personal lives, as well as their professional, accomplishments. And just to remind our audience, we have a giveaway at the end of the season. So please keep commenting, keep sharing to qualify for it. So now, without waiting any further, let's dive into that conversation with Nabin Banskota and Nami Baral. Welcome, Nami and Nabin.
Thank you so much, Preeti. It's such a pleasure to be here.
Perfect. Thank you. And I loved meeting the two of you. Ekishin bhaye pani in New York City, and I hope that we can really catch up, in 2024. Adhikary body time ko lagi.
Sure.
Absolutely. I think I mentioned this to you the day we met in person. You have done such an amazing job with this community, and it has been such an honor to really watch it grow and the community come together, really kind of flourish and prosper in so many different ways. So kudos to you and the team. I think you guys have been doing such a fabulous job.
Thank you. It's a team effort like everything else. It has been incredible. I think the timing has been so right for it.
Yeah, there are a few, organizations like this in the past. I know, let's say they did it, but then they just vanished away. And you have been able to continue that with your persistence and relentless approach to this. And it's just so amazing to see it. It's really exciting as a Nepali entrepreneur or Nepali person in the US to be able to see, the Nepali diaspora kind of come together under your leadership. I think that's it's an amazing thing for all of us. And
Thank you so much. And I think that's the reason we're actually hosting your podcast, Pani, right? Because people like you are doing still incredible things that are not everybody knows about it, especially if they're not in that particular domain and so on. And I think that transparency, that visibility of our community is so needed, okay? Right?
Right.
But let's get started. First question, say, how did you meet? Was it love or professional partnership?
We met through mutual friends, and I think it was a New Year's party. Yeah, it was a New Year's Eve party, and we were friends for a really long time before we started going out. So, I think it's the best of both worlds. You get to know somebody as a friend, and so there's not a lot of this initial kind of hit of a romance that dies away after some time. It's just the person for who they really are, because you have gotten to know them as friends first. I think that's what happened. Like, we were friends first, and then like, later on it, obviously we started developing feelings for each other. So definitely love. But there's a lot of like, I guess non-love elements too, which is why, you see us collaborating on so many things. I don't think that's been possible if we were just romantic partners.
Yeah, I mean, I met her it was a New Year's party, all of the Nepali people. I think it was in 2011 in New York City, Matthew. Common friends, we're at a bar, and I saw her, and then I went up to her, I talked to her, I bought her a drink, and then she was about to graduate from Harvard at that time, and she was going to do an investment banking. I was already in New York City, already working at Wall Street, so there's a little bit of common connection, and then we went out to lunch. She went back to school. It just happened, and then.
And then we stayed friends.
Yeah, and then after graduation, like she came, worked in New York City. We became friends, and yeah, things started from there. I really liked her from from the first time I met her, but it took her a little bit more time to get to know me and then like her. But yeah,
it's No, amazing. No, I love that. That's really sweet. That love, partnership, and then to actually be co-founders, that's another step, and it's a huge step, right? It's not just about falling in love matren, and you have to stay in love, right? I mean, the same for being co-founders. So how is that sort of being in a relationship, my partnership, versus being co-founders?
Yeah, I thank you for asking this question, because we don't really talk about it a lot, because kaam गर्ने बेलामा you really just focus on your work so much that you do not think about all of the intricacies of it. But for me, obviously in a husband and wife relationship, a love has to be there. But any successful marriage, right? Obviously there are all kinds of marriages, but I think in any successful marriage or in any successful relationship, you have to have respect for each other. And I think respect is even more important than love, because love can, it ebbs and flows. Once you have a kid, you love that more than you love your partner.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly.
So, love morphs, but respect is consistent, and I think,
and it is mandatory, I think.
Oh, absolutely, it is so mandatory, and being there for each other, being each other's support system is so much more critical for any long-lasting relationship. And so we have that in our in our relationship, and so when we were doing our previous startup, and when we decided to do this particular startup as well, it was always important to make sure that anytime you find a co-founder, right? And I was Cleo was co-founder. In my case, it just happens to be my spouse. But whenever you are trying to find a co-founder, everybody talks about it as if it's a marriage, right? Like everybody talks about, you have it's like a marriage. You have to find the right person, because you need to trust this person, and you need to be able to, you need to be able to support each other too. So the same thing, what I realized was when we were doing our last startup, our risk गर्ने बेलामा चाहिँ, I had recently left Twitter. It was, obviously a big leap from being in a very cushy job to starting a new company, especially as a female founder. I know, in a really male-dominated industry. त्यतिखेर त अझ त्यति धेरै entrepreneur, there were not that many entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs in this space, that space in general. Most of the times you'd see, female entrepreneurs in kind of cosmetics or maternity health or
exactly.
Right now, in mostly stereotyped kind of female founders on the ठाउँमा. So to be in fintech and to be in AI was a very isolated experience. But at that time, I realized that your spouse, if you have a supportive spouse, they are part of your startup, regardless of whether they're on the cap table or not.
Exactly.
Cap table the title but there's always somebody you need to talk to and just brainstorm and just रिसुटे पनि कसैलाई भन्न पाए हुन्थ्यो जस्तो हुने एकदमै there's so many
the low points पनि.
Oh, absolutely. So many bad days, because every day has emotional peaks and emotional lows in entrepreneurship. अनि त्यो हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ सबैजनालाई गएर भन्न पनि सकिँदैन होइन तर आफ्नो पार्टनरलाई चाहिँ स्पेसली सपोर्टिभ पार्टनर छ भने मन हल्का हुने दे विल बी एबल टु हेल्प यु अनि त्यस्तो हुँदो रहेछ अनि द्याट्स वेन आई रियलाइज योर स्पाउस इज इज a part of your company, regardless of whether they're captive or not. And so when we were, thinking about this particular company, Nabin was in the process of starting another startup, and I was in the process of starting Niural. And then we realized, like, okay, we have a kid, like having a kid, a toddler, and startups in the same household is just going to be like they'd kill each other probably, right? Just based on the work related exhaustion alone. And more importantly than that, we wanted to be able to support each other because entrepreneurship is hard. Starting a company, regardless of how many times you've done it before, is always hard. So that's when we realized that it's better to just concentrate our efforts into one thing.
Yeah, and then also what helped is, listen, for all of the entrepreneurs, who are a little bit, into their 30s or 40s, once you have kids, I think you have to think about family as well as your company. And so those type of things will play a factor.
Right.
And, by doing that, starting a same startup, I think what gave us flexibility. Like, for example, हामी नेपालमा गएर 4 महिना बस्यौँ, नेपालमा टिम सेट गर्यौँ. Like, the kids, spend time with, हाम्रो
parents.
Like, if we have 2 different startups, 2 different jobs, we'll never be able to do that, right? And so life is all about experiencing, things, we're also, taking care of your family, but at the same time, you are also, starting your own company, you have certain ambitions. So I think there is a way to balance both of those. And that played us a big factor for us to, doing this together again. But once again, like I am पहिलाको startup company, I think पहिलाको startup I was more like 20%, like a little bit more passive, co-founder than active co-founder.
Right.
We realized we can actually work together. We bring a different sort of, capability, skill set into the mix. And, even this company, it's very important, like, you have a lane, right? So like most of the other things, we I guess overlap in certain things, but we both have a lane.
Yeah.
We both are free to operate. We bring the best of both ideas, the best of both worlds, from our, experiences, because I spend, time in financial services, fintechs. He was more tech entrepreneurs. He spent a lot of time working with engineers. I've never spent a lot of time working with engineers. Those things will come into play, and we looked at it, and I think we can actually do a bigger startup if we combine our efforts together. At the same time, give enough time to our son Nirvan. He's only 2 years old when we started the startup, and then travel around the world because it's a global company, and team in Nepal, spend time with family. So all of those factors played into starting this together as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. I love that you figured out the complementary skills part, and you're trying to balance everything, right? Because what I hate, as much as I love entrepreneurship in general, but what I hate is it's just the glorious side matre it's showcased. It's almost like you just started, and then there's going to be people rushing to fund you, and it's going to be a breeze to manage everything. But that's not true, right? There's so many conscious decisions you have to take. And then thank you for being so honest about it. I think Theo is so needed, especially for our community. Okay, that it's not there's a lot of risk involved. You have to be really intentional. Theo is important. Let's sort of go back a little bit agadi, in terms of your childhood, youth in Nepal. Tell us about that. What was it like growing up, that part of the world? And also, I think how it's shaped you into who you are.
Yeah, I think obviously my experiences growing up have been very different from that of Nabin. I'm originally from Pokhara. I was born and raised there. I studied +2 in Pokhara, and then I applied to colleges Pokhara Batani. I was born into a middle class family. My parents, they used to work at a bank, but they were like kind of not really high up. So I would say it was a very happy childhood because my parents, they're just amazing. I don't think they left any stone unturned to give us the opportunities that they could have afforded for themselves. But that said, you have to remember, this is Bohara 20 years ago, right? And Bohara 30 years ago, right? So Bohara 30 years ago is like, you think about it, they were like forests, they're right. They were like very, very, very different from somebody who we have been like, kind of raised in Kathmandu, for example, right? Like, not that many, it's a beautiful place, but कुनै पनि opportunity केही कुरा गर्नुपर्ने छ भने चाहिँ काठमाडौँ नै पुग्नुपर्ने टाइपको थियो अनि अलिकति गाउँ जस्तै पनि थियो access to kind of most kinds of like a modern infrastructure available थिएन अनि so I was always good at my studies अनि अब नेपालमा हुन्छ नि सानैदेखि राम्रोसँग पढ्छ भने चाहिँ अब डक्टर बन्ने भन्ने त्यो हिसाबले चाहिँ I always thought that I'd be a doctor. That's what my parents wanted, me to kind of go in the track of. Ani +2 पढ्ने बेलामा चाहिँ what I realized was, like you enter into that phase where you start your mind starts exploring. I know. Right. There are so many very important decisions you have to make at the time of like, +2 पछि के पढ्ने हैन +2 मा पनि bio पढ्ने कि math पढ्ने कि math पढ्यो भने के हुन्छ bio पढ्यो भने के हुन्छ त्यो it's a very rigid path जस्तो छ नेपालमा चाहिँ अनि at that time I realized that 12 पढ्ने बेलामा चाहिँ I still have not like ventured out of Pokhara. मैले त्यति बेलासम्म म कहिले प्लेन पनि चढेको छैन अनि it was also Pokhara, a girl like conservative family, Brahmin family, all of that हैन अनि so त्यो भएको भएर I had not really gotten the chance to really come out of my shell भनौँ न अनि I felt that and I was really thinking त्यो कुवाको भ्याकुता हुन्छ नि like right you have lived your entire life inside of a well and you are aching to go out. I know in my mind it was like I really want to see the world. I know I want to see a very different world. It is such a bigger place and I have not explored any of it. Right. Then I realized like what म चाहिँ +2 पढिसकेपछि I'm not going to study here. I'd rather study abroad which was a very, very, very big thing. Exactly. Especially मेरो family. Obviously there were many other people in a privileged position at that time who had their family members abroad. मेरो family को चाहिँ कोही पनि कहिले पनि नेपालबाट बाहिर पनि गएको थिएन त्यही भएर it was a big leap हैन अनि मेरो पेरेन्ट्सहरुलाई चाहिँ फर्स्ट छोरीले अहिलेसम्म डाक्टर पढ्ने भने छोरी she wants to go study somewhere else. They know nothing about applying to American schools, colleges, कस्तो हुन्छ के हुन्छ त्यसमाथि पनि अब कहिल्यै घर छोडेको छैन हैन अनि अब बाहिर गएर एक्लै छोरीलाई कसरी पठाउने के गर्ने it was a big decision for my parents but kudos to my parents. They have always really supported me in my ambitions and have kind of helped me to think bigger and bigger every time. Ani they supported me in that quest. Ani I started applying to colleges and everything. I got into really, really great colleges. I ended up obviously picking Harvard. Ani त्यसपछि चाहिँ बल्ल first time प्लेन लिएर म नेपालबाट अमेरिका आएको. So it's been just अहिले सोच्दाखेरि चाहिँ त्यो 30 वर्ष अगाडिको पोखरामा जन्मेर like completely different world के अहिले त कहाँबाट कहाँ आयो जस्तो फिल हुन्छ.
So my childhood was slightly different. I was actually born in eastern part of Nepal, Pastar भन्ने ठाउँमा, in a big family of 8 siblings. I came to Kathmandu very early on. I think when I was 6 or 7 years old. And I studied in Xavier, so that gave me a little bit more exposure to a lot of different things. I was not the most top 1% of the class. I was kind of like middle aged, but I was more like an all-rounder, right? I used to play sports competitively in high school. Actually won a basketball championship in Nepal during +2. So I was more around that, very curious about a lot of different things. I never wanted to be a doctor, engineer बन्ने चाहिँ like doctor बन्ने चाहिँ like मेरो family चाहिँ कस्तो थियो नि मेरो dad चाहिँ he did really well for himself as well and he was into social services, politics as well. And he moved his family very early on from eastern part of Nepal to Kathmandu for better education यताउता भनेर मेरो दिदीहरुको लागि सबैलाई भनेर he even started his own school and he was always an entrepreneur. Okay, I don't think he had a salaried job in his own life. So that also gave me some inspiration to be an entrepreneur from very early on. And if you look at my family today, I think all 8 of us, I think we lost one, but all seven of us are all entrepreneurs of some kind, right? So, and then so it's a very different culture. My parents never told me, oh, do this, do that. You doctor bannu paryo, yo bannu paryo. I had to I could explore things on my own. And plus two गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ, I wanted to go to India and I still wanted to study computer science at that time. And something changed while I was in India. I think at that time, the Nepalko rural massacre literally happened at that time. And I was in India. And then basically something changed, came back to Kathmandu and decided to come to US. And the moment I came to that realization, September 11 happened, right? So it was like, it was crazy times at that time. And the visa pani banda garla, opening garla. It was like a little bit of a scramble, but I came to US right after that. And, for me, it was like, I needed to go and do something on my own. I was, in a family where, pretty well off in Nepal. So I had all the, motivations, everything else. But it just came into myself, in the matter of a couple of months that I still want to go to US. And my underlying desire was at some point I'm going to start a business. That was my desire. But I came to US as a computer science, and within the first semester, I just changed into the business degree because I didn't like computer science at all. So now I guess, back into the tech sector again. But, I didn't get a scholarship. I had to come here, pay for the schools and things like that. It was a different journey than what you went through. Right. But yeah. And that's how, I ended up here.
Awesome. I love that. Kosto different, upbringing. They can even family dynamics, right? In terms of, I guess the attitude towards entrepreneurship, they can everything. I think it's so different. So that are very fascinating. So above, for whatever reason, US IO, right? And how was that, right? From, individual level, Matse, how was that, was there some kind of a culture shock, kosto khalko experience there from that to, becoming an entrepreneur? What was the journey like?
Yeah, for me, I got into Harvard, and Harvard gave me a full scholarship, right? And full scholarship pani kasto bhane, Harvard has an amazing financial aid policy, हैन? अब त्यो चिसो ठाउँबाट आएको छैन भने, हैन? Like यो धेरै पढ्ने ठाउँबाट आएको छैन भने, Harvard would give you literally money to buy winter coats, हैन? त्यस्तोसम्म गर्थ्यो, everything was free. Padne, Basnet, Khane, everything. And it was really a place where I had seen, obviously Nepal at that time, and most of what I'd seen of Nepal was Bohara, honestly, like Nepal and it was a very limiting place because obviously as a tourist destination, Bohara is a beautiful place, but कति धेरै कुराहरू just I had not even gotten to see or experience or didn't have even the mental bandwidth to even think about, हैन? कसैले पनि त्यो नहुने. तर अमेरिका आएर, especially अमेरिकामा पनि हार्वर्डमा आउँदाखेरि चाहिँ it was number one culture shock त भइहाल्छ, हैन? Once again, raised in a very conservative family, outside of the capital, त्यो दिमागलाई widen नै गर्नुपर्ने थियो त्यतिखेर. अनि Harvard was a great place to do that because it's in Massachusetts, one of the most kind of liberal kind of states in the country and everything. अनि म आएको बेलामा चाहिँ ठ्याक्क Obama र McCain को election थियो, अनि Obama became president at that time. And so I got the opportunity to really kind of look at America not just from the perspective of a student from a developing country who had come to Harvard, but also looking at America itself as a changing ecosystem.
Evolving place, right? Exactly.
Yes. Like अब changeहरू त्यतिखेर के भइरहेको थियो भनेर भन्दाखेरि अब नयाँ elections भइरहेको थियो है. There was a black man was becoming president of America, something that people had not fathomed before, right? So there was a lot of change happening in just this kind of interesting hope, desire for change that was I could see in the air, होइन? अनि अर्को कुरा चाहिँ the country was going through the last economic crisis, the great financial crisis 2008 मा, हैन? When the markets went down and everything. And I also got to see the side of obviously Harvard was the opulent side. There was everything that you could go to, dining hall ma गयो भने there would be a 1,000 things that you'd get at a banquet just so I know, which I realize is like not commonplace. Not every.
It's also a bubble, like these all.
Absolutely. It was a bubble, and I thought, and that was my college experience. I thought everybody experienced that. I realized how much of a privileged place that was. Later on after I graduated. Also at the same time, I saw the opportunity to look at America from a vantage point where like I'm sitting in the middle of opulence within Harvard, but then the country is falling apart, right? People are losing their jobs. People are losing their homes at that time, right? Not just losing their jobs, but losing their homes, which is crazy when you think about it, right? Like you can't pay for your home, you get kicked out of your home. It was a very interesting way for me to, just having come from Nepal to America to juxtaposition of emotions just I guess my worldview changed
you drastically not
absolutely अनि म pre-med भनेर अनि like Harvard Medical School मा मेरो एउटा top professor सँग मेरो उ पनि थियो हैन like research opportunity पनि थियो त्यो tied very amazing scholarship पनि थियो. And I'd have gotten the scholarship anyway, I'd get the scholarship anyway, regardless of what I chose. But pre-med, the opportunities are open too. But then I realized, obviously there was that pre-med side, but then after looking at all of these different kind of economic, viewpoints, I felt like I needed to learn more about that. And I actually switched my tracks from pre-med to doing math and economics at Harvard, which is another big leap that I've taken in my life. My parents, they were like, what is she doing? But, obviously, later on, years later, I always see that you're a sum of your decisions. I know, every decision leads to a different outcome, and then you become a completely different person for who you are supposed to be. But that was, I think what has led to obviously my worldview of America as well. My day, math economics पढ्न थाले and I realized that a lot of people think America is a land of roses. I also thought that, and I was at the place where it was a land of roses.
Exactly.
But at the same time, America is not the same for everybody.
So
it is a lot of parallel
reality, right?
Yeah, it is also a very, very difficult place for most students who come here.
Yes, I had a completely opposite, experience, coming into the US, especially. About 9/11 पछि US मा it was a very different, emotions people were going through. So it was a little bit challenging to adjust. म चाहिँ जेवर्समा पढ्दाखेरि हाम्रो चाहिँ ब्रदर्सहरू यो फादर्सहरू हुन्थ्यो, so we had some exposure to हुन्छ नि कस्तो हुन्छ भनेर.
Right.
Then I came to Kansas, out of Wichita State University.
Where in Kansas?
Wichita State University.
I know.
Right?
But
you were in the middle of a snowstorm. I arrived on January 9th. The college, they only 14 ba open hunthyo. Somebody dropped us into the dorm. There were only 12 of us. There's no dining food, nothing. We, for the first, that night, I think, the vending machine got a chocolate nikakera khai. The next 2 days, we walked to a McDonald's half a mile down because nothing open. Okay, it was a state emergency. There was a 15-inch snow, and it was cold. The Nepalबाट ल्याएको ज्याकेटहरू पनि त्यस्तो कोड नथाम्ने कि it's extreme temperature हुन्छ नि. We would go to McDonald's, have a dinner or lunch, come back, and we're already hungry because half a mile. It was so for the 3 days we're I had some just about the experience was horrible for the first 3 days. I mean, at least at least we can talk about it. Then the third day, college open and then there's everything is available. But until the college opened up, it was a completely different experience. Plus, US मा त्यति बेला नेपालमा त्यति बेला US जाने हुँदाखेरि everybody's oh the US गएर यस्तो भन्ने त्यो हुन्छ नि हैन. So Kansas आएपछि चाहिँ we realized we are in नेपालको त्यो अलि पश्चिमतिरको एउटा पूर्वतिरको गए जस्तो गाउँमा आएर we just didn't feel कस्तो हुन्छ नि अमेरिका आए जस्तो लागेन के forms. So we literally changed it to Colorado, University in Colorado the next semester. But that semester was eye-opening for us. I changed the college, and then Colorado, I spent in a couple of years, and Colorado is beautiful. Nepal just states are there were a lot of Nepalese at that time as well. And that, helped us calm down a little bit. There was even a thought like, okay, maybe we should go back भनेर हैन, like त्यो पनि आएको थियो, धेरैवटा थट्सहरू आएको थियो. And then Coloradoमा त्यो भइसकेपछि चाहिँ I spent like 3 years in Colorado, and मेरो चाहिँ underlining desire के भयो भने I switched from computer science to business. And I was talking to a professor and basically said, hey, listen, I want to go to Wall Street. I want to work in Wall Street. That's one of my goals. And he basically said, well, if you want to work in Wall Street, you are in the wrong place. You have to go to New York. And I'm like 1 year away from graduation. I'm kind of, you start looking for jobs, right? And he's like, you're absolutely in the wrong place and wrong time here. You have to go to New York. And he's like, even it doesn't have to be a great university, but as long as you're in the city, you have exposure to internship without that. That's the way to get jobs. And that was like one of the best advice I've ever gotten, I know, about, because I seek out, help, I know. Because a lot of people don't do that, and I did that. And I literally, in a matter of a month, I transferred to Baruch College in New York City because there was nothing else unavailable, or all those were expensive. And I went to Baruch for the last year, and it ended up in a year and a half. I had to get internship, and obviously I didn't go to Harvard, so it was a little bit difficult. As an international student, you don't have a work permit, you have to apply through schools,
Exactly.
all kinds of things, right? So all kinds of things that we go through as an international student. So I managed to get an internship through City of New York in Office of Budget and Management. That was like one of the coveted internship. I internship for Prudentials, and that really shaped my, career basically. Because त्यो 2-3 internship गरिसकेपछि चाहिँ त्यो कलेजमा कम्पनीजहरू आउँथ्यो जब रिक्रुट गर्नलाई. I think by the time I graduated, I have like 10 job offers, from all Wall Street firms. So it really, my, त्यो risk हुन्छ नि, like, okay, 1 year away from graduation, but my underlying desire to work in Wall Street. So somebody told me like, that's the way to do it. And I followed it, and I worked really hard to, achieve that. That saved my, entire career in the US.
Oh, that's so interesting. I think, part of it is obviously destiny, but it's also one, taking that risk, and two, also that timely advice. Advice just comes and it sort of means nothing, funny, right? Just, having the right connections, right? The advice and you following is incredible.
You thought I was crazy to already.
Right? I'm sure.
It's 1 year away from graduation, and you want to transfer, that's something people don't do, right? But something told me that, if I really want to do that, then I just followed through. And, and sometimes, you have to follow through what you, believe, right? And
of course.
And that led me through, all of those other things.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I think a common theme of, I've seen, obviously, among my other founder friends and a lot of other people, non-founders who have been successful in their lives, is calculated risk-taking is very underappreciated, but extremely needed, right? Obviously, you don't want to take risks all the time, right? But if you have done enough due diligence, that risk-taking is in a manner,
it gets better.
I think it is like an agent to take that leap. Yeah. I think it is important to take that leap. And अर्को कुरा चाहिँ अब advice, I mean, we're talking about the Nepali diaspora community here and everything. So one thing that I've seen is, a lot of people who tend to really become successful are the ones that not just seek out advice, but are willing to take that advice. Right? Because कति धेरै मान्छेहरूलाई, they may have their friends, they may have their families, like kind of giving them the right advice, but they're not
they're not open to it.
Yeah, not open to it. Yeah, exactly. They're not open to it. They don't take it. And later on, like, they say, oh, you were right just the
Exactly.
So, if you see somebody who is at least, a couple of life steps ahead, right? And that's true both in, where your company is or where you are in life, right? I always seek out advice for my company and what I want to do from people who are 1 or 2 steps ahead. Like, the area ahead, their advice may not be relevant.
Right.
Same stage, you have not built up enough experience sets to, kind of really generalize. There are 1 or 2 steps अगाडिको मान्छेहरु कोही छ भने, like, seek out and be open to their advice, because they will help you avoid a lot of traps that they themselves went through. त्यो आफूलाई नपरिन्जेलसम्म नहुने भन्ने कुरालाई चाहिँ अभोइड गर्न सिक्नु पनि पर्ने रहेछ कि, So when somebody tells you that, you need to go to New York because Wall Street is there, the fact that he was open to that advice.
No, is so important.
Definitely. One of the things I realized about, he probably didn't see it because he came on a scholarship and all of that. Most of them, their first semester was paid in the US.
Right.
You had to work over the summer. Like everybody would go to like OC,
exactly,
State Park. Like we all did it, right?
Right.
It's a hard thing. Like, a lot of people, Nepal they don't appreciate that, or they don't know that. They think it's a bed of roses.
Exactly. The visa paeपछि use a magic pill.
It's the the advice that I used to give to a lot of people was undergraduate Nepalmai garera. Just do undergraduate in India. It's so much easier to do like just a master's 8 वर्षको लागि unless you have scholarship. Scholarship China, life's going to be very difficult. You have to work during school, you have to work over the summer, like 90 hours because you have to pay for it, right? Because a lot of families from Nepal, उनीहरूले त यहाँको यत्रो like 10, 20,000 plus car, living expenses or pay गर्नु त गाह्रो हुन्छ.
Exactly.
What I have seen a lot of people, त्यो student भएर आइसकेपछि a lot of the times, even talented people, they choose like the, easy route. Easy route, you go work in a gas station, work in...
Cash ko lagi,
they get...
Very short-sighted.
Right? Very
short term.
$2,000-$3,000 bio. You can buy a car on, $300 loan. They can pay for it. Then they just enjoy that. And then by the time they realize, I have to go back and do this, it's too late for them to. Right? So that's one of the trap, that I have seen.
Exactly.
And, a lot of people go through that trap as well.
Right.
Now, America, through experience in it, why not shoot for the stars? Because that option will always there for you.
Right. That can always be there, right?
Right, that always be there. So that's one of my advice. And I think the younger generation are much more like following through their dream.
Right.
I've seen in the last 5-7 years. But the cases are very different in the past. And which is why, I realized why Nepali 3 years from हामीले entrepreneurहरू किन ठुल्ठुलो company नभएको भन्दाखेरि I think that's one of the reasons because they're only 20% of the people they go through that or get scholarship and those are the ones doing well. The other ones are like just happy with what they're doing and that's fine too, but not everybody's going to be an entrepreneur. But that's one of the trap. America presents opportunity, but at the same time you can also
presents distractions as well, right? What you're talking about, that trap is that distraction. No, I hear you, Ani. Hamro TGND Beats actually one sort of initiative we're starting in 2024 and it's related to I'll share is almost like a student onboarding right? So Nepal it doesn't matter if you have scholarship or not. धेरै मान्छेलाई अहिले त social media a lot of people know what Kansas looks like versus Boston. But when you get admission to a college, you have no idea what that like living there looks like, what figuring out the rest of it looks like, right? So I think your last couple of years, I also hear a lot of issues around mental health. They can be struggling to figure out, internships, they can job. So Hamro and Manse, what we're hoping to do this year is really plug into, once people arrive wherever they come, right? We plug them into our community so that they have people to ask them, somebody to tell them, okay, you have to go to New York or something like that, right? Kati times त्यो पनि हुँदैन. And I think at scales, we're hoping that people, so hamro time what the mistakes we make, the younger generation doesn't have to go through that, right? I think
absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great thing you're doing. I think that is still required today as well because a lot of people come to US, and they don't know what they don't know, right? And they don't know what to expect. And, and then the first few things that they do could shape their career or could shape life as well. And I think that's very important that, we, been here for a longer time, kind of give them advice. And it's really up to follow the advice, but at least, and I feel like it's almost an obligation for us to tell them like, hey, what to
exactly. Right.
Yeah, that's a great thing you're doing.
Thank you. No, and then Nabin तिमीले भनेको points and like a lot of I think still parents or families in Nepal think the one semester ko paisa bhayo pani and then like you're supposed to figure out that is not easy.
Right, definitely not easy. Yeah. That's one, actually, in fact, it's the hardest thing, and that also brings a lot of the mental issues and mental tension because, pandemic, a lot of people lost jobs and things like that. They're able to pay, they dropped out. Like, those things add up, right? And 4-year college all of a sudden becomes 7-year college. Things add up, and sometimes people just like, hey, I'm trying to do the best, but at some point they're like, I need to put food on the table. I need to have it happens a lot. I've seen that.
Yeah, sustenance becomes a lot more important than like the initial reason I came here for, which is studies or access to opportunities. Like I'm not somebody who will say that okay, so everybody has to have like an amazing degree from an amazing college. That's not true.
Right.
You come to America because Nepal does not have opportunities like not that this opportunity Nepalma hune bhako Nepalमै बस्न is far easier.
Right.
Just in general. So यत्रो गरेर आइसकेपछि अनि especially the amount of expenses, the amount of emotional burden that you give to your family too, right? Like family पर्छ सबै कुरा like there's a lot of things.
The risk you're taking.
Yeah. Exactly, and the risk you are taking. So you have to kind of take a step back and remember, why am I here? Like, am I here to make a quick buck? Or am I here just to live day to day, paycheck to paycheck?
Exactly.
Or am I here to achieve something bigger? Right? And if I'm here to achieve something bigger, then hopefully our community can help guide those people in the right direction, give them the network, give them the connections that they need so that they get access to the opportunities. I know, but राम्रो पढ्ने मान्छेलाई त्यही अनुसारको internship, if somebody wants to start their own company, then त्यही अनुसारको guidance. I think all of those things, at this point, we have enough substance within the Nepali diaspora community to have those mentors and have those people who are very, very willing to guide, as long as you're willing to listen.
Right. No, you're so right.
Yeah, I see the parallel with like the Jewish community, because when I first started at KPMG, like they have such a strong community even after they graduate and go to school.
Exactly.
It's networking opportunities, any jobs, like referral dine, like which you have started. I've seen like, Nepali diaspora. Now we're doing it, right? Now we have enough people in the US that are in a good, companies and whatnot. I think that is also required to like propel ourselves into.
I think so.
Same thing with Indian communities, right? The Indian, even Gujarati communities have their own thing. Like, Punjabi have their own thing. Right. Fine, if they don't want a job, they don't want to go to school. Even like, owning a gas station, owning a business, owning a hotel, owning whatever type of business, right? If we can have somebody kind of help them, guide them, like getting a loan, how to get started. Even in real estate, I see a lot of people doing well in real estate, right? So just getting to know that and seeking out and, Nepali diaspora kind of providing those kind of, opportunities for people to like, explore different things.
Right.
It will help us, propel like entire community really well, going forward.
I think so. So, we have people willing to help at this point. People are in good places. We should leverage that. I think that's happening. Yeah. So that's very exciting. Next question for you too is, does it get easier on your second or third startup?
Okay.
What gets easier?
Okay. Does it get easier? The overall answer is no. But there are certain things that get easier, and certain things always stay difficult, right?
Okay.
So certain things that get easier is, obviously if you have already kind of fundraised before, if you have had access to a certain network, whether that's network of founders, angel investors, VCs, whatever it might be, you already have access to that community. So I do think you are a lot more wiser going into fundraising, and I think it takes shorter amount of time for repeat founders to fundraise, right? So that gets easier. The second thing that gets easier is obviously, at that point you would have done a bunch of hiring. There are people who have noticed your trajectory and everything. So ideally, finding better talent also gets easier. What does not get easy is product market fit is unique to each company. So doesn't matter how many times you do it, product market fit गर्नको लागि business successful हुने भनेको चाहिँ there is no recipe to it. It takes a lot of grit and grind and blood, sweat and tears, होइन? त्यो चाहिँ that's a given. You're probably going to be working extra hard because now the expectations are even higher, right?
That's right.
So I think it does get a little bit.
Yeah, that's a little bit easier. And then the other thing gets, emotionally, right? You are a little bit more confident. First time around, every single day you are doubting yourself. Somebody's telling you, your investor telling you to do this, and some advice telling you to. You just don't know what to do. Like, and if you're not very focused on it, Second time around, you kind of get everybody's advice and make your own decision, and you're a little bit more confident in doing that.
I think so.
And I think that gets a little bit easier, but like to Nami's point, like, getting clients, getting product market fit, like hiring people, slightly easier, but still very, very hard. And the expectations is even more, right? So, in terms of what you want to achieve, it just, it just multiplies the effort, from the second time around as well.
Of course. No, my dad said I always compare it. I don't have two kids, but I always see that, and I maybe in my mind say I compare it to having two kids.
Yeah.
Because the first one, we're all so worried. We're like going crazy trying to figure it out. And I see family or friends that have two kids, and they're so much more relaxed. Okay? So maybe a little bit so similar in that sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it probably is. I also only have one kid, but between the kid and the startup, I do feel like, I have many kids.
Does Nabin count as another kid?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Many kids. 3 kids in my house. So, एउटा कुरा चाहिँ के हुँदो रहेछ भने, you obviously, when you have a real kid, when you become a parent, obviously your entire kind of existence changes, right? A very similar kind of emotional transformation happens when you have a startup, right? When you start up, there are people who are like entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs who say, hey, मैले यो पनि गर्छु, त्यो पनि गर्छु, यो पनि startup गर्छु, त्यो पनि. No, what I mean by you having a startup and you being an entrepreneur is you really, really going at it with one thing, right? So this is what time, whatever you're giving you 100% focus on, that is you cannot build a new company. You cannot build a generational company and build, something successful by, half-assing it.
Right.
So, when you are then giving 100% of yourself to something, then you are so emotionally tied to it. And there is a significant difference that I felt the first time when I was starting a company, my last company versus this is initially as a founder, you are very, very married to your idea. मेरो दिमागमा यो idea छ, nobody else has this idea, and I'm the only one that is able to execute on this idea. Right? Maybe I should not share this idea with that.
My idea is so special.
Yeah, maybe I should do an NDA. When I speak to an investor, I disclose everything. This one, the initial snow. Then as you get to learn, what truly, truly matters is execution, right? You could take some of the most, kind of oldest businesses that have existed on earth. Payroll is one of them, right? You could take one of those and you still see so much opportunity to just building something so cool and so innovative with that, right? Versus first-time founder, you were really thinking about, okay, this idea is what is amazing. Idea is the one that leads to success.
$1 million idea, right?
Yeah, exactly. Ani त्यो भएको भएर the thing that is, I think, very different the second time around is you focus more on iterating your idea. You're so much more open to iteration because you know that the first idea that you think in your mind may not be the idea that eventually you end up kind of fixating on and working on and bringing it to success. So for any first-time founders out there, if you want to kind of really avoid the mistakes of being a first-time founder and, want to kind of have that brain power of a second-time founder, be very open to what the market is telling you, right? Don't be so, don't just drink your Kool-Aid, right? Exactly. Don't be open to be open to feedback, listen to what the people around you are saying, what the market is saying, and morph and be willing to morph your idea to adjust to or solving for a problem rather than I just want to build this idea.
Yeah, I think that's really because the first-time founders, it's very easy to copy somebody's idea and they can say, I can do it better.
Right.
All of the things that goes behind, the making of a great product. And that's one trap that, easy to fall into. And starting with the solution without understanding the real problem is another big trap that first-time founders will fall into. And that's why, to Nami's point, having, discussions with your client, prospects and everybody else, and really understanding the problem and understanding, if somebody else is building in it, or, if they're finding the best way to solve that problem will eventually lead to a better outcome as opposed to the other way around. And I think that's another trap that we do see a lot of first time.
Exactly.
Right?
You see it all the time. Our last lamo question for today, say, we've talked a little bit about that. Now we see a lot of excitement in the diaspora, young people that want to build something. What is your advice to those people?
For me, obviously building is such an important part of, any economy. I think, the entire country any country you look at, it's built on the back of entrepreneurs. So building is a very important thing to do, right? So the fact that more and more people are willing to build and become entrepreneurs, it's a very exciting thing. Tara, you need to know that this is a very, very, very hard journey, like harder than you can imagine, right? So you really have to understand what it is that you're building, what scale you are building for.
Right.
So for in our case, right, I have built venture-backed companies. When you are looking at building venture-backed companies have to have a certain level of scale, right? So that means you have to build faster, you have to scale faster, you have to get more customers, more revenue faster. And there's always a very set timeline of how, when you need to achieve certain things by, right? Also, it is one of those things that until you know what's going on in that ecosystem, it's very difficult to get in, right? So, don't have a rosy view of entrepreneurship, right? A lot of people, once again, a lot of people just tend to hear the glamorous side of entrepreneurship. I know everybody talks about Elon Musk and how he has built a
TechCrunch
IO भनेर हैन तर there are no successes that are built overnight, right? Behind every successful company, doesn't matter how big of a company it is, how amazing the founder is, or how many times the founder has done it. Behind every successful company is 18-hour work days, a lot of sacrifices, you not being able to attend your friend's wedding, not being able to go to somebody's bachelorette, not being able to, get proper sleep, having to spend money out of your pocket. In my case, not being able to give enough time to my only son, right? Those are the sacrifices that, you have to be willing to make when you're venturing into, in our case, a venture-backed business.
Yeah.
There are definitely non-venture-backed businesses you can start as well. And in that case, it is more of a lifestyle business. It takes a different kind of composition.
And they're both okay.
Okay. Right? It is also okay for you to not be a builder and go and work at, another company,
right,
where you can, obviously, lend your skill set to really, build amazing things. A lot of people from Nepal are now working at, Google, Apple. I used to work at Twitter, right? So there are definitely places where, whether it's in tech or in defense or people go to the military and whatnot, right? There's a lot of different opportunities for you to be a person of substance without being a builder as well. And that's also absolutely okay.
Yeah.
Right. But when you come into, building, just be very, very aware of the realities, because if you come into it thinking that this is going to be easy, you're not going to succeed. And that's the worst feeling of them all.
Right. And one thing I always tell people is, if you want to be in that entrepreneurial path, want to start your company, go take a job at a startup, because this gives you a tunnel view of what really takes to build a startup, scale a startup. And I think they can see, they can experience that, right? Especially early stage startup, have some funding, they're scaling, that would be the best one. It also accelerates their professional growth by 10x, right? Somebody worked in a startup for 1 year, they can really compare to 5 or 7 years of work they've done in a corporate role in a big company.
Exactly.
Because they will be asked to do so many different things. They will be everything, right? So marketing, sales, and go-to-market, and building, and product, and all of that. And that's very important, because you need to be able to juggle a lot of these things, being very scrappy, whether it's your own business. That's even more important if you want to build a non-venture-backed business. Or if it's a venture-backed business, you have to be able to, to Nami's point, be able to scale timely. Because if you don't do that, your next fundings, you're not going to get it, right?
No.
It'll be too soon, or you have to give it too much equity. So you have to think all of the things. So the best place to start is, think about it. If you want to start a lifestyle business or actual proper business backed by venture capital, to two different worlds. Mm-hmm. The lifestyle business you can do, and you can have a full-time job and do that on a part-time. But a venture-backed business, you can't do that. You have
exactly because there's external pressure from the pressure we put ourselves in.
Yeah, there's external pressure, and also, right, because if you're gonna do it, you want to give yourself 1 year or 2. You don't want to give yourself a 7 year of life, exactly. Right? Trying to go to product market fit.
Right. Exactly.
And 7
is the same as taking 7 years to graduate undergrad.
Exactly. The opportunity cost is huge, right? Which is why you need to be able to reiterate faster, being able to get to product market fit faster, get to funding faster, because then it makes all of the sense. A lot of people also make that mistake. They are a part-time and doing this for 7 years. That will never.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that would be my suggestion, or advice would be really figure out what you want to do. And, sometimes if you want to go here, you have to take 2 steps back before you make 4 steps forward. Right. And if you are an engineer, you want to build a company, you don't know anything about sales, anything about product, anything else, go take a job and start doing that. Mm. And that gives you an experience like what it is really to scale a company. I see a lot of engineers, they're failing because they built an amazing product, but they don't know how to go to
how to sell. Right. And selling is not easy.
Selling is not easy.
And as a founder, you have to sell, right?
Yes. You are expected to sell. You're the best person to sell. And if you can't, either you get a co-founder, and that's the other advice I give people is, if you want to start a company, I always suggest getting a co-founder. Mm-hmm. Then you can talk to them about in ebbs and flow. You will have a partner to go to. Okay. You can always talk about it, emotionally. You can also, there are days when you really need to talk to about, things. And having a co-founder with a different skill sets actually makes it a whole, right? And then you can basically say, you have a technical founder, non-technical founder, then it makes your process a little bit easier, journey a little bit easier.
Yes, I would absolutely want to reiterate hard on that co-founder point. Like, having the right co-founder is super important. And just don't go try to find co-founders just for the sake of finding co-founders, right? Because you do not want anybody who is going to kind of stop your momentum. You do not want somebody just for the sake of them, kind of checking the boxes on a resume. Right. There might be an amazing person who looks good on paper, but the camaraderie and
that's true with hiring in general. But
absolutely,
what looks good on paper is not always the case.
Exactly. And then once again, the co-founder relationship is a really important one because you're going to be giving a very significant equity chunk of your company to this person, right? So practically you're giving this from yourself, right? So it needs to be the right hire for economical reasons, but then more importantly, for you to succeed, you need to have somebody else that you can, kind of really go to. Let's say, if I'm in an investor conversation, then Nabin can take over a lot of the other things that we do internally and vice versa, right? So all of those kinds of things where you are able to really trust this other person to do their job and go above and beyond is super important. Whoever that person is, don't just look at their resumes. I think, if you find that fit, you'll know.
That's really good advice. And I hope people that listen to this episode actually, internalize it. One day, but now we've started this new sort of section. Hamra podcast mein, it's just for this season. It's like a rapid fire. I think we have 6 or 7 questions. Don't think too much. Whatever comes to your mind, just say it. Onsa, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Who's smarter?
I think she's smarter.
I am.
I'm smarter, but she's smarter.
No, I think she's smarter. Here. One thing you agree on.
We agree on most things. Our kids.
Yeah. There you go.
Follow up to that, who's the stricter parent?
I am.
You see, it's definitely.
Yeah.
At least to balance that as well.
I spoil him, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, I didn't want to be the stricter parent, but I have to.
One of them has to be.
Exactly. You need to balance it. One thing you disagree on.
Oh, we disagree on so many, like every single day.
Yeah.
And that is one, I mean, this is rapid fire, but that is one of the things you should be, like any co-founder relationship and any partner relationship needs to be as much about agreements as it is about disagreements. We disagree a lot, but at the end of the day, we come to terms with, we not compromise, but we understand, what needs to be done based on both of our opinions, right?
Yeah. So at disagreements, you have to go through a process and find the right thing at the end of the day, regardless of whose idea it is. That ego needs to be out of the window, and then always apply the right thing to do, especially in the professional settings, like in a company.
Yeah,
awesome.
But we disagree a lot. Like we have heated conversations about things all the time. Like, and
who wins these conversations mostly?
It's about
who wins.
It's not about
it's actually more right.
Yeah, it's about what's the right thing to do, right? Inside the state of the company. Like it could be about hiding. We talked about a lot about hiding. Like, do we get a VP of sales? Do we do individual salespeople? In terms of, going to market, like, do we do smaller, mid, enterprise, all kinds of things. We both have very different ideas.
So it also means that you're invested in the company.
Absolutely.
That's where the passion comes for these world. One goal for 2024. Separate ones.
Scale up our team and scale up our revenue. So you pick something else.
Well, I would say something like, do us, the next round of funding.
Okay. One challenge and one sort of opportunity about building a company, building a team in Nepal.
Oh, the challenge is training. The rigor, the mindset, and the actual training of how to do professional work and how to do world-class work, unfortunately, does not exist in Nepal. So
a lot of work ethic, rigor, quality.
Right. They all know, it's everything from how somebody speaks English to how they write it and how it appears on code. They all know everything. They're very, very smart people. Just consistently producing that quality and doing it with rigor and intent.
Right.
Something that I think America is just that's just a given. Yeah,
exactly.
Hard work, rigor. Yeah, it's expected from every single person.
That accountability.
Oh, yeah. And then Nepalma that doesn't exist. So, whenever you are hiring, you have to filter out for those kinds of qualities. So challenge is that. Opportunity, such amazing people, such great education. If only they get the right training and education.
You have to invest time for that, you'd say.
There is so much potential.
Yeah. And then it also, from for a company like ourselves, we can't hire 18 engineers here, right? So, cost-effective, solutions, hiring people from Nepal, having everybody into one place, in this day and age. We started at, hiring remotely all the engineers. It wasn't working. So we basically went and started an office in Nepal where everybody comes in, product manager, designer, engineers, front-end, back-end, sales, operations. I think it gives them an opportunity to see end-to-end view of the company. Exactly. And that's really what's missing in Nepal, because a lot of those folks are working your project project
but they don't have that the ownership.
Ownership and then building okay, how does that impact customers? We are accountable. End-to-end view, end-to-end building an end product is very different than just working on a project.
Exactly.
I think, that's something we are looking to change in Nepal. That's a huge opportunity to do that. And there are amazing engineers there as well. It's just that getting them to, understand this other side of, I call it 90% and 10%. They're 90% there. It's just the last 10% is going to make them either a 10x engineer or 1x engineer. That's the difference. Right. And that's the opportunity for us. And challenges time zone is always the challenges. And sometimes, the culture is a little bit of challenge, even for us. We've been working at 20 years. We're a little bit, straight to the point. sometimes you don't get the same at the same time. It's like, okay, like, no, say if it's not okay, say if it's not okay, right?
Right, and the subtle hierarchy go and all of it.
Yeah. So that's, that's in, challenge initially, and some people get used to it, some people don't, that's ongoing challenge.
And, I just want to add one last point of just the overall opportunity here, right? Like, the reason we built Niural is because we believe that, the world is changing very materially, right? And if you look at the biggest export of any country in the world, for the US, it's software products. It has all come from people's brains, right? For Nepal's biggest export to the world is not going to be tourism or anything like that,
or any manufacturing.
It is any Nepali person, a skilled Nepali person with their computer and internet, regardless of where in Nepal they are. That is going to be Nepal's biggest export and Nepal's saving grace, right? And that's why intentionally we try to. It is hard. It is much easier for us to build a team here than try to go through all of these hoops to build a team in Nepal. But we want to, because I think that is going to be our contribution to show the world what.
And it's also like, you're so right, Nami. And I think it's also to train the trainer. So I think it has a domino effect over time. It's obviously challenging, but over time, I think even in terms of that cultural shift, all of it I think it's going to be beneficial. And my last question for today: Austin, New York, or Boston? Which one is it?
I think it's
New York.
We're in Austin right now, but I think New York is, I mean, I spent 20 years there, and I think New York gives you that vibe. You live in New York, you feel like you have the vibe of Kathmandu. You get everything, like all friends, families, you literally have everything for everyone. And food is amazing there.
Yeah. I mean, for me, New York just has unmatched energy. Like, energy is everywhere.
I agree.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Nami, Nabin. It was a pleasure. This was so much fun. Thank you for being on our podcast.
Well, thank you for having us.
It was such a fun conversation. Thank you for doing this with us.
No worries. And for our subscribers, please like and share. Thank you.
Thank you.